Hello, Filip. Thank you for joining me for the Espresso 4.0 episode. It's such a huge honor to have you here.
Pleasure to be with you, or at least to be connected, Filip.
Yes, I'm sorry you couldn't make it to be actually here on the couch sharing a cup of hot beverage, or in my case, a cup of cold water this time. But maybe soon in the future.
Yeah, I have an espresso, so I'll take a rain check on that kind invitation, Filip.
Perfect. I'm glad you took it seriously and brought an espresso, unlike me, the host of the show. So why don't we start off things by a brief intro as to who you are and what your background is.
My name is Filip, like yours, I reckon. I'm a mechanical engineer by education. I did a PhD in engineering sciences in the Ghent University in Belgium. Also a master in ocean and offshore technology at Cranfield University. And I've spent the better part of the last 15 years with the ArcelorMittal group, so the biggest steel supplier in the world. And recently, starting this year, I joined Finindus, which is an investment company as a joint venture between ArcelorMittal and the Flemish region.
Excellent. You obviously have a plethora of experience on the matter of sustainability. That's why, as well as steel manufacturing, and that's why why I wanted you to be part of the show, one of the guests in one of the episodes. And let's get right into it. My question is, in your opinion and perhaps experience, what role do digital solutions play in reaching sustainability goals when it comes to steel manufacturing industry?
I would almost be inclined to believe they are the bread and butter for it, because we tend to say what gets measured gets done, and we're looking at an unprecedented challenge in front of us in decarbonizing the steel industry. We as ArcelorMittal, but also most of our peers or the entire steel industry in Europe for that matter, we still follow largely the blast furnace route, which produces 1 ton of steel at the expense of 2 tons of CO2, or almost 2 tons of CO2, which kind of starts jeopardizing our very license to operate. And hence, we now have a significant investment program in front of us where we will gradually step away from the blast furnace route and go towards other technology, DRI, which is direct reduced iron with an electric arc furnace, and that will significantly reduce our carbon footprint. But then to answer your question, in order to quantify that and in order to understand whether we're on the good track, I think we will need digitization of our assets, all the way from the upstream steel making down to even the packaging, the shipping, and the logistics. So it will be the tiny gears in this entire process that will actually inform the decisions that we need to take moving forward.
Perfect. I mean, you kind of answered my follow-up question, which was going to be like, what is the value of actually data or measurements, as you call them, in deploying a digital solution for more sustainable production? Can you expand a little bit on that, on how important it is to have data from ore all the way to the finished product?
I'd be happy to, because as I said in the introduction, I studied in Cranfield. I studied pipeline engineering. So I tend to say I'm a mechanical engineer by education and a pipeline engineer by religion. I have been exposed to the oil and gas industry in the early days of my career, and I am wholeheartedly convinced that data will be the new oil, almost literally at face value. So we can appreciate data as a reservoir of potential energy that can unlock tremendous value, provided, of course, you know where and when and how to unlock and drill for that data, and that you have the tools, the instruments to refine and distill that data into valuable and actionable insights. And hence, this is the value I see for the steel industry, but also for the petrochemical industry and for all the hard-to-abate industries, that it's going to be the data that will point us in the direction where we need to go in order to reduce our footprint, in order to converge into a more sustainable and circular economy, and ultimately build a more sustainable future.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And so I'm a head of a plant, right? How do I start a project like this? Where do I start? What are the principles, key principles that I need to keep in mind in order for us to launch a successful project?
Yeah. If I were head of a plant, I do a Pareto analysis to understand where the pressing pain is, because we have an awful lot of data, measurements, variables in the process, and this can be the temperature of a reheating furnace, the forces of a rolling mill, the reduction that you need to obtain, the properties of the steel altogether. And hence, a steel mill is a living beast, it's a living animal, which is also requiring vast amounts of energy. And this is starting to be, and this is where I would start, honestly speaking, it is starting to be a concern across the board, energy saving, not only for the steel industry, but for sure for our colleagues who are operating blast furnaces, electric arc furnaces, annealing furnaces and the like. And if we can reduce or save just a couple of percentages of energy, that already makes, in this day and age, it makes a tremendous difference. So that's honestly where I would start. I would identify one of those assets that consume a lot of energy, such as an annealing furnace, and I would launch a pilot on that. So work together with someone who is well versed in data analytics, together with my own team of both process engineers and data scientists, in order to define a KPI. Can I reduce the energy consumption or the emission or what have you of this particular asset with to reach this target, and then implement a pilot and see to which extent we can indeed improve the process.
Yeah. You actually highlighted a very important part of launching such a project, which is the people on the ground, the business experts need to be involved with whoever, whether it's an internal team of data scientists or whether it's an external supplier, because every site, every manufacturing process, every asset is different. There's no one equal ones, although there are a lot of commonalities. And it's the people on the ground with years of experience that will know best. So their involvement is key, as well as in development, as well as in later adoption.
Absolutely, because as you rightfully say, every single asset is a bespoke structure, it's a one-off. And I think you also need to engage them in order to have their ownership from the very start of the project, yes.
Excellent. Okay, a little bit of a less serious question. If I were to call you on a Sunday at 2 p.m., what would I be interrupting you in?
Likely I'd be reading a book.
Oh, a book. Excellent. Any recommendations?
Yeah.
What are you reading now?
I'm in the process, honestly, of reading up on artificial intelligence. So I read a couple of books, and I'm currently reading AI Ethics, which is which kind of looks at the philosophy and the ethics of artificial intelligence, bias in data, and whether artificial intelligence can still explain the decisions they take. And I must say, for an engineer, it makes a revealing reading.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give it a shot, because that is something that that is particularly Elon Musk also talks about. Yes. When it comes to the role that AI will play in our not so distant future. Yeah. And what are the ethics? What are the implications on our ethics and morality, rather? And okay, last but not least, what is the coolest thing you recently witnessed in, whether it's in Industry 4.0 or any technological advancement or innovation?
The coolest thing I recently saw was optimization of a pipeline network informed by remote sensing. So it was I think the throughput and the temperature of a pipeline network conveying industrial gases that was optimized by a network of distributed sensors and again data analysis, and I reckon some big data mining or artificial intelligence in order to improve and optimize the asset, which tells me that this is no longer something that may unfold in the future, but it's already technology which is happening today in front of us.
Indeed. So it was a closed loop process of self-optimizing. Wow, that is quite cool indeed. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Filip. This is kind of concludes my questions that I have for you. Very efficient. I didn't expect anything less from you. Thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge, and hope to have you soon in another episode in the future.
Thanks for having me, and looking forward to sitting aside of you in the distant future.
Absolutely.